thank you. You're off to an amazing start at this conference. I'm so honored and delighted to be here. Sanan, thank you for that wonderful introduction. I really appreciate it. And I love that poem. You did a beautiful job. I've been to Dadaab, and to think about that girl writing that beautiful piece of poetry, living in that experience is really heartbreaking and energizing and just really inspiring. So thank you so much for that. And thank you, Esther, for putting this together. It's an amazing group of people, not surprisingly, but I really appreciate your leadership and I appreciate the opportunity to be here. So one of the very best things about my job is that I get to meet some incredibly courageous, innovative, and extraordinary people almost every day, just like Sanaa and others around the world like her. One of these people is a young woman I met in Malawi, from Malawi, named Memory Banda. I don't know if any of you have run across her. I just saw her in New York again at the Commission on the Status of Women. I'm always excited to hear from her about how she's working to empower girls, both in her community in southern Malawi and in her country overall. Memory is a really powerful example of how education can change lives. As an advocate for girls, she offers free writing lessons to adolescent moms in her neighborhood. She visits the families of girls who are in danger of being married, and she encourages them to change their minds. She gets a whole group of girls together, and they go to the houses, and they say, really don't let your child do this, and talk to the girl about why she shouldn't participate. She's part of this grassroots campaign to build networks for girls and end child marriage once and for all. But that's not the whole story with her. Memory became an activist because for her, gender-based violence is incredibly personal. She has a younger sister named Mercy, who when she was 11 years old, got pregnant at one of these so-called sexual initiation ceremonies in Malawi. During these ceremonies, girls are forced to have sex with an adult man to prepare for marriage. These ceremonies are obviously horrific, and their consequences are really lasting for these girls. Like many others, Mercy ended up pregnant and had to drop out of school. Memory and Mercy's stories illustrate for me how education and gender-based violence can determine whether a girl becomes a powerful advocate, like Memory, or an adolescent mother, like her sister. And that's why, as the ambassador for global women's issues, one of my top priorities is gender-based violence, both how we can address it and even better, how we can try to prevent it. Violence influences so much else in a woman's life, her ability not only to survive, but really to thrive. So this issue is directly linked to our other foreign policy priorities. For example, the United States is focused on increasing women's full participation across the board. From the corner store to the corner office, from peace tables to parliaments, women deserve the opportunity to participate fully in society. And when they do, we all benefit. And this is the argument that I make consistently when I travel, that it is in their interest, the interest of these countries, to have women participate. The economies are better when women are in the workforce. Societies are stronger when women are in politics and even in police forces. And our progress is greater when girls have the same opportunities as boys, whether that's in school or at home. So I'm really glad that this summit is focused on gender-based violence and also on education. It recognizes that women and girls have tremendous capacity to be powerful engines of economic growth and leaders for change. Everywhere I go, I meet girls with this capacity. Girls in Mexico City, I was a couple of weeks ago, girls in Marrakesh, girls just like Memory Banda, who deserve the opportunity to reach their full potential. For these girls, adolescence is a critical moment. Their decisions or their inability to make decisions for themselves can determine the rest of their lives. And gender-based violence is one of the biggest factors at play. On any given day, there are many vulnerable moments for a girl. It starts when she wakes up in the morning and gets ready for school. If she lives in a developing country, she may not have a bathroom in her house. Whether she's walking to a public toilet, far from home, to a field, or making her way to school, she's at risk for harassment and for sexual violence. When she gets to school, she's greeted by her teacher. Again, this can be a moment of risk. Her teacher may try to force her to have sex with him in exchange for improved grades. He may even view sex with his students as compensation for his low salary. But he's not the only potential threat. She also has to be on guard against sexual violence from her fellow students. A recent study in Cameroon found that 30% of sexual violence experienced by girls in school was committed by a male peer. If she lives in a country or area plagued by violence, her journey home can be fraught with potential violence as well. It can come from a soldier, an armed rebel, a gang member, or just a sexual predator. If she gets home safely, in many places she spends hours doing work around the house before she even can turn to her homework. But what if it's a holiday and she doesn't have school? If she lives in one of 29 countries where we know that female genital mutilation and cutting is prevalent, the time home from school can actually be a great risk for suffering FGMC. She's at risk for a lifetime of health consequences, hemorrhaging, recurrent infections, increased risk for HIV, complications in childbirth, and even death. And FGMC may be the way her parents are preparing her for marriage. If she does get married as an adolescent girl, she's at risk for increased violence again, and her early marriage will likely put an end to her education. So it's kind of a list of horribles, I'm sorry to say, and for many girls, that is the existence that they are facing, one challenge after another. But the good news, and it is good news, is that we're not powerless to stop this. We can play important roles in addressing these problems. We can expand women's economic opportunities like the Akila Institute for Women does in Rwanda and Burundi. We can build girls' confidence and leadership and transform gender norms like the Inter-American Development Bank has done with girls-centered sports programs in Bolivia. And we can make sure we have strong research foundation to help with decision-making, like the Clinton and Gates Foundation's No Ceilings report. It is really a critical piece of data for all of us, I think, to work from. In the face of these tremendous challenges, everyone here is doing work to promote education and gender-based violence. And I have to single out my friend and colleague from the UK, Baroness Northover, who you're going to hear from shortly. But the UK is doing tremendous work and shows just persistent leadership on these issues, and we really appreciate that. And I'm so glad that you're going to get to hear from her today. I think you'll really learn a lot and really appreciate that. I'd like to just take a moment to talk about what the United States is doing. Last month, I hope all of you saw the President and the First Lady launch the Let Girls Learn initiative. That's a whole-of-government approach to reach girls around the world at this critical juncture in their lives and help them stay in school until they finish and they're really ready to contribute to their economies in a more fulsome way. Over the coming months, we'll provide every U.S. embassy with concrete tools they can use to advance girls' education. Now, we know education is critical, but it's most powerful when it's part of a comprehensive approach. That's why, in addition to Let Girls Learn, we also have programs like the DREAMS Partnership. Through DREAMS, we're working to reduce new HIV infections in adolescent girls and young women with the ultimate goal of an AIDS-free generation. And of course, we're always looking at local solutions, which are absolutely critical to solving these problems. Last July, as Ebola spread across West Africa, my office launched our biggest grant to end FGMC ever in Guinea. In Bolivia, we're funding radio campaigns to end the silence around intimate partner violence. In Papua New Guinea, we're funding trainings that empower survivors of gender-based violence with business skills. And in Benin, we're working to reduce early and forced marriages and expand services to survivors. All of these efforts, not just those of the United States government, but the efforts that all of you here represent, all of them are critical, and they take place at a critical time. In a few short months, the world's governments will come together on an agreement around shared goals and a shared global vision, one that will shape our development investments for the next 15 years. Many of the world's development challenges hinge on investing in and including girls and women. So it's a really exciting time. The global community will likely recognize gender-based violence as an impediment to unlocking the potential and achieving the future we want. But this will happen only if we continue to raise our collective voices loudly enough. I know that's exactly what you're doing here today, and I commend you really so much for what you're doing, and I wish you the best. I think it's going to be a great conference, and I wish I could be here all day, but I will be in and out, and my team will be here. I would like to just end with a couple of words from Memory, who I hope if you all haven't met her, you get the chance to meet her, because she is truly inspiring. She said, "Let girls be valued, their issues be prioritized, their voices be heard. What we need is action." So thank you all so much for having me, and thank you for what you're doing.